Hey folks, Ken here. So the To the Moon Beach episode finally released last Friday, and grateful so far. It's been generally well received, and I do expect it to be less so as time goes on because it really is a for the fans of the series kind of game. There's like I generally try not to do that, because you kind of have to be following the series quite closely and kind of know a little of everything of the series to really enjoy it. But at the same time, there are certain things that you can only do with something like that. So this is like my one shot of the series to try to go for it. And again, like it is kind of for the fans of the series, but I don't expect every fan of the series to like it. And it's one thing with this episode is that although there are some very important things in terms of the main plot, especially toward the end, it is still quite, like, duration wise, it's still quite filled with fluff. But I think for something like this, what it's trying to accomplish, that is kind of, it kind of fits into it, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I do understand. Like, I was reading some negative reviews. Like, there aren't a lot, but I expect more in the future, and in the sense that about that. And I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, yeah, this makes sense. I was actually expecting more of this, and it's also one of those sad parts. It's one of the sad parts about making a series like this, in that it's kind of like, if you think about this series and all the areas we want to touch on, all the topics and all the themes and all the let's say it's a garden, right? And so each part of that is like it's a different section of that garden. So with each release, I try to kind of tend to a part of that at a time. So by the end of the series, by the end of everything, when it's complete, it's a complementary garden, like, in the sense that you can take a step back and it feels complete for the whole series, for what it's trying to do as a whole. So each time, perhaps a different section is tended to, but at the same time, it's like, I think it makes sense from my perspective, but from the perspective of a player, because it's impossible, like, to really want, like well, not impossible, but it makes sense often, like, certain folks, like, you're not here for everything in the garden, so it's like, you've seen a nice, some folks saw a nice lily the last time they came around, and now they wait 3 years and come here again, and they're like, what are you doing with the cactus over there, and I'm just like, yeah, I know, but trust me, we're gonna need this cactus here, but by the end of it, it'll make a part of the whole aesthetic. But that being said, like, from that perspective, of someone who's been waiting for like 3 years and come here, and it's just, and that's just disappointing, and that's quite sad. I that's something I kind of struggle with, but it's also one of those things that it's a little unavoidable. But all I can say is that it's kind of like, if you look at the skyline, you saw a fireworks display one night, and then you come back the next year and you want to see there again. If you keep on staring at that same section of the sky each time, you probably won't see the whole display. Maybe sometimes it's over there, sometimes it's over there. So you kind of have to let it go, to try to do that, and in some way you kind of have to, like, trust me in that I'll have the whole garden ready in the end. But not to say that I won't disappoint you, because I very well might, but because that if you don't, there's that anxiety to it that might actually make it harder to enjoy something as it is whenever it's out. You know, but speaking of which, it is kind of interesting to see that, you know, I read that a good portion of folks who actually didn't enjoy Imposter Factory found that the beach episode actually kind of made up for what they were feeling were missing in that. And it makes sense in some way, you know, because in some way Imposter Factory was like the beginning of the end, so to speak. And it marked that, but there was like a big emptiness in that. So the beach episode kind of filled that, some inner parts of that, to have everything be more complete. But inside the beach episode, there's another emptiness. It's not whole yet, you know, and some part of that emptiness, I think it's intended. But there's another part of that emptiness. I feel like I have something to fill it with, you know, and I feel like that there's something to do there. And so I used to say that, you know, the beach episode and Last Hour RPG, you know, Last Hour of an Epic to the Moon RPG is kind of like the two endings of the series, like good ending and bad ending. But I guess in some way it's more accurate to say that it's almost like Imposter Factory is like the shell of the ending, and the beach episode is like the inner crust of it, and then the Last Hour, I don't want to use, because it puts the expectation, I don't want to use like the word core because it puts the expectation too much, but it's inside that, if it makes sense. And it's just dumb, silly fun, you know. So what I'm saying is I think, I hope what I can do is to do for Beach Episode what Beach Episode did for Imposter Factory, and to use Last Hour to be that. So for folks who felt like the Beach Episode was missing something, again, like I don't know, but you might be able to find it in the Last Hour. At least that's kind of like the mental setup I have it going in terms of feeling. And it's actually not something I can't even put in Beach Episode, because for Beach Episode to be its own thing, like it's kind of, the structurally kind of needs to be like this. Well, I hope it makes sense eventually. It's kind of hard to, I'm bad at articulating it with, you know, that's why I spent like 3 years saying like something for 1 hour, because but yeah, so that's, anyway, that's also already quite spoilerish, but we'll get there. But you know, it's one of those things too, like I know, like with the previous titles for Last Hour, it's kind of like I know the ending and I know how it comes together, but I don't know, well, yeah, I don't know how the process is like before then, and that's something that's still, you know, always being worked out as I go, you know, shooting the general direction, and then kind of, so when, you know, I see some, you know, of course fans of the series tend to leave very kind, you know, words for, and I know, like, you know, some like a lot of folks think I'm like not a good writer, and then there are folks who do think I'm like a decent writer in the reviews, but when I read those nice things, I'm like, I don't think I'm neither there or here, you know, because I think what I am, I actually tend to be a good pivoter, in that as I have the destination, I go, but whenever something gets close to feel like it has a connection, I can pivot to it quite naturally. That's something I found true about myself as time went on, and it tends to work out. You know, so it's not so much that, you know, of course I do have plans, concrete plans too, like, you know, sometimes relatively elaborate, but a lot of it too is not as planned as you might think, and because it's also influenced by, especially the details of things, it's also influenced honestly by you guys, the community, like the posts I see and the theories and all that. that's been floating around the community. Not in the sense that I just see what people want and I just do that, but it very very much indirectly affects the ways certain things are done. I try to do that as much as possible within the boundary of staying true to the core vision. But in the end, it's quite, you might say you've played quite a hand in in how the series really shaped up and wrapped around. And lastly, I just wanted to say that say something about the beach episode. Because there's something in the beach episode that folks were confused about, and I think you weren't supposed to, or you can't really be not confused about it. And it's that there were certain characters in there that folks don't really recognize from from the game, from the Tuno series games. For example, like there's the other bird lady. Actually, you probably don't even know she's the bird lady, but Lunaire, for example, who hangs out with Faye in the beach episode, and who seems to have kind of like Faye-like powers in the sense of like an admin kind of thing. And some folks find out that she's and the other characters in there that not familiar with are from a game called Quintessence. Like it's one of my old games. But you know what? Don't worry about it. Don't download it. Don't look it up. Don't play it. It's actually embarrassing. It's like 20 years ago or something like that. That was made when I was a teenager. Anyway, but while I do have certain meta plans for her and their inclusion there, I have to admit and apologize, because the biggest reason for their inclusion is actually quite a selfish thing, in that it essentially what Faye is to Colin in Finding Paradise. So Lunaire, and I guess the whole cast of Quintessence, is really my Faye. They're the OG Faye, so to speak. So while there are those meta narrative plans I have in the future, it's, for the most part, I really just wanted them to be there. I wanted them to meet their other characters, and I guess in a meta narrative sense, it does make some sense too. You kind of have the layering of worlds from Imposter Factory, right? Where Faye is kind of an agent that helps out from someone's created world inside of created world, and really weird, and this making the entire series itself is at the bottom of that stack, right? So in some way you can say that it's kind of like a my agent in there, but that's neither here or there. So again, don't worry about the game. Don't worry about the. Don't try to find it. Don't try to download it. But maybe you could remember the name Quintessence. That maybe I'll see it again one day. But yeah, that's I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say, and just want to thank everyone for just giving this series and this beach episode a shot. I know it's kind of like a chaotic experience, and I hope you liked it, and if you didn't, I hope I'll make up for it one day. I hope in the end it works out, and I hope you can look forward to the Last Hour RPG. I'm not sure when it's gonna come out yet, but I'm gonna get full on into it very soon. And it really, I guess it really will be the last hour of the series. And I don't know if it will be good enough. Maybe it can never be. But I guess it's, as Eva said, the ending is both not as important as the moments leading to it, and also more important at the same time. And that's weird. That's part of being human, I guess, the hypocrisy and the contradictory things we hold all at once. It tends to be a lot of what we argue about, and it's also what makes the world interesting. because I guess the truth really, really is kind of fuzzy and chaotic, and sometimes we kind of just have to accept that it is to, to make peace with it. So, anyway, thank you for playing, and yeah, hope to see you guys again one day. Take care, guys. Cheers.